Hi, friends. They reported Meri Brown was quiet. They reported she forgave easily. They reported she'd never talk. But on that gray morning when she entered the courtroom with a manila folder pressed tightly against her body, the entire mood changed. A woman who once spoke softly now strode forward with intent, and what she carried would shatter 7 years of secrets, silence, and tears. The cameras weren't turned on. The crowd wasn't a crowd. It was a jury. And in that folder, pages of sorrow, ink, stained words, tears, bloodied, her secret diaries, 7 of them. One for each year she silenced her truth. The room fell silent when she passed Kody. He didn't look up at her. Robin fidgeted in her seat. Christine and Janelle sat like ghosts of what used to be, holding steady as history started to break under the pressure of admission. The judge pushed her glasses higher on the bridge of her nose. This court is now in session. And it was on it went. The courtroom didn't hum, it locked up, because when the prosecutor uttered, "Your Honor, we move to admit Exhibit A," everyone's focus moved to the folder in Meri Brown's hands. She never blinked. Her fingers, wrapped tightly around the edges of the weathered manila file, didn't tremble. Inside it, 7 years of Meri's handwritten journals. Her side of the story never filmed, never scripted, never filtered through a TLC producer. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Please approach." As Meri stood, Kody stiffened at the defense table. Robin's hand reached toward his, but he didn't take it. His teeth ground together, his eyes narrowed on Meri as if she were someone he didn't know. Maybe she wasn't. It was his fault his jaw had clenched, not hers. She moved to the stand at the deliberate, unhurried pace of a woman not collapsing, but ascending. She dropped the folder onto the prosecutor's desk, turned to the judge. "They are mine," she said, her voice low but distinct. "They are unedited, dated, private, until today." The judge opened the folder. Her eyes ran over the pages, ink smudged, creased at the corners, emotional heft practically oozing off the paper. She nodded. "They're admissible." The room breathed a collective sigh. The courtroom was forbidden to cameras, but it didn't matter. Everyone present knew what was occurring would be recounted for decades. This was not tabloid material. It was truth, shattering years of silence. The prosecutor drew a breath and read from the first page, the 18th of February, 2016. "He told me today that I had too much emotion, that I drained the family spirit." Robin watched from the hallway, but said nothing. I think she was told not to interfere, or maybe she agreed. "I don't know anymore." Christine released a soft gasp. Janelle gazed down at her lap. Robin's expression was inscrutable. Kody, he didn't flinch, but the room seemed to have shifted. Because this wasn't just Meri's voice, it was a time capsule of suffering, a diary of gradual erasure, a woman buried under smiles and camera cuts, the prosecutor went on. The 3rd of June, 2017. "He didn't respond to my texts for 11 days. I called twice. No response. On television, he had told me I was working on myself. He said to me, 'Hold on to that story, TLC prefers it more.'" The judge's eyes jerked up. "Are you telling me that Mr. Brown instructed you to lie about your emotional state for the show?" Meri nodded. "Yes, over and over again." A shudder ran through the room, not audible but emotional. Christine wiped a tear from the edge of her eye. Robin fidgeted with the hem of her sleeve, and for the first time that day, Kody looked shaken. The courtroom wasn't loud, but it was heavy. After Meri's first journal entry was read aloud, a kind of stillness fell over the room, a silence from having too many truths out in the open, just waiting to burst. Christine fidgeted in her seat, her fists clenched in her lap. She looked toward the stand, at Meri, then at the judge. Then she stood up. "Your Honor," she whispered, "can I ask to speak in behalf?" Kody's eyes went wide. He muttered roughly to his lawyer, "She is not on the list. She is not testifying today." The judge didn't blink. "This court is concerned with the truth, not calendars," Miss Brown continued. Christine, slow, stepped to the stand, her heels clipping a beat that was a reflection of her pounding heart. She walked past Kody's table without a backward glance. Robin didn't lift her gaze. When she arrived at the stand, she didn't sit. She stood upright, her hands clasped together before her like a woman both shattered and remade. "I remember the day she took me to see those notebooks," Christine started, voice uncluttered. "It was last winter," she was sobbing, not too loudly, just enough that I understood this wasn't about one bad day. It was years. She glanced at Meri softly. "You wrote things I didn't know, things I ought to do." Meri nodded, her eyes sheeny, but said nothing. Christine gazed back at the judge. "There was one entry I shall never forget, March 2020, she wrote. He said I was lowering the family's energy, that I needed to move back, spiritually, emotionally, physically. So I did. I moved back into silence." Christine paused. "I read that line again and again, and I recalled when we were shooting that season. I recalled how suddenly she began speaking less, appearing less, laughing less. We all assumed she was dealing with something personal, but what she was dealing with was invisible exile. The words invisible exile hung in the courtroom like a chill breeze. The prosecutor moved closer. "Miss Brown, did you ever see Mr. Brown encourage Meri to keep herself isolated?" Christine hesitated not at all. "Yes, frequently, and not just Meri. He punished with ease without ever lifting his voice. His favorite tool was silence." From the defense table, Kody's face flushed. "Objection," his attorney yelled. "This is defamation of character." "Overruled," responded the judge. "It is called testimony." Christine descended slowly, but not before she turned to Robin. She hesitated. "You knew. You were there every time he released Meri. You nodded. You never appeared surprised." "Only relieved." Robin's lip trembled. The courtroom strained. "And Meri," she didn't sob, she breathed. For the first time in years, she wasn't being erased anymore. The judge ordered a brief recess. No one did anything. The courtroom remained frozen, choking on a silence heavy with betrayal, memory, and something else, anticipation. Because everyone knew. We hadn't even scratched the surface of those journals. Robin was stiffed. Her knuckles were white against her blouse, her hands trembling in her lap. She was always the one Kody had sheltered, the one who didn't cry on television, because the cameras never recorded what occurred before the tears. Until now, court reconvened, and the prosecutor didn't dawdle. She addressed Meri, still sitting, still serene. "Miss Brown, in your journals, do you find any instances where you were discouraged from speaking with Robin to face about her position in the family?" Meri nodded reluctantly. "Yes, frequently," Kody told me. "She is not your problem. She is mine to handle." Kody let out a sharp breath. "She is distorting that," he said to his lawyer. The mic picked it up. The judge arched an eyebrow. "One more outburst, Mr. Brown, and I will have the courtroom cleared." The prosecutor went on, moving to another flagged page. "The 14th of August, 2018. I asked why Robin received special time. He replied, 'She deserves it. I said I was sick of earning everything.' He said to me, 'Don't compare. You'll always come up short.' Robin stood behind him. She nodded. Gasps, real ones. Christine covered her mouth. Janelle looked away. The prosecutor's tone was stronger now. 'Miss Brown, you are saying that Mr. Brown verbally belittled you over and over again while promoting Miss Robin Brown, quite frequently with her in attendance.' Meri didn't flinch. 'I am saying it was policy in our household, not an event, a structure.' The courtroom stopped moving, and then Robin stood, her voice only just above a whisper. 'May I be heard, Your Honor?' Kody turned. 'Robin, no,' he spat, but the judge agreed. 'You may.' Robin glided to the front of the room like a specter. Her eyes sparkled not only from crying, but from the burden of a secret she'd kept for far too long. She did not climb on to the witness stand. She stood next to it. 'I did not expect this to go as far as it did,' she whispered. 'But the truth is, I did nod. I did remain quiet. And I did benefit.' Meri turned her face away. Janelle stiffened. Christine's eyebrows snapped together. 'I told myself that I was surviving, but I was gaining. That is not survival. That is complicity.' The judge addressed her kindly. 'Do you want to testify officially?' Robin nodded. 'Yes.' Under oath. And just like that, the courtroom started to reorient, not legally, emotionally. The courtroom air thickened, not with noise, but with truth in the making. Robin stood, looking back at the prosecutor. There is something else. Something I believe the court should hear. The judge cocked her head. Proceed. Robin trembled slightly and rummaged through her handbag for a small digital recorder. This was never meant to be seen. But I kept it. I do not even know why. Perhaps I knew this day would eventually arrive. The defense team protested naturally. Kody's attorney stood up like a man with a bucket of ice water dumped over him. Objection. No warning, no confirmation, inadmissible, but the judge cut him off with a gesture. If confirmed, we'll move forward. Robin gave the device to the bailiff. The recording was ready to play, faintly crackling through the courtroom speakers. And then, his voice, Kody Brown. Unfiltered, unknowing, ambushed by an instant he believed would dissipate like all the others. She keeps questioning things, Meri, always resistance. That isn't love. That is resistance. I don't require resistance. I require cooperation. Robin realizes that. Silence, and then a soft draw of breath from Meri. I instructed Robin to keep her talking, keep her optimistic. Meri believes she is recovering. She isn't. She is disappearing. That is what I want, for her to disappear. Gasps now, actual ones, loud ones. Christine's hand flew up to her mouth. Janelle looked straight ahead, jaw clenched. The judge leaned forward. Miss Brown, who taped this? Robin hesitated, tears welling in her eyes. It was during a session we did with the family counselor. I wasn't allowed to record it, but I did. I knew what he was telling me was bad, but I was afraid to talk then. The judge's tone fell an octave. Is this your voice in the background of the recording? Undefined. Robin slowly nodded. Yes, undefined, and I didn't stop him. Undefined. He nodded. Undefined. He said, I understand, and I did. Undefined, but I also regretted it the moment we left that room. Kody sat motionless, undefined, white, face assistant Faye. His mask, the honed one of decades of television grins and talking heads, had broken apart. Undefined, and beneath was something raw and cornered. The air hadn't circulated in minutes. Kody's words still lingered in the courtroom like a specter that wouldn't depart. Meri believes she is healing. She isn't. She is disappearing. That is what I require, her to disappear. It wasn't merely a vicious comment. It was a tactic. And now the tactic had depths, for the prosecutor had come prepared with the second half of Meri's journals. And this time it was not only a matter of feelings, it was money. She stepped back to the stand, a printed copy of Meri's entry on the 9th of October, 2021, in her hand. Today I confronted Kody again about our business fund we all put in, Unity Ventures. He told me to leave. Obsessing about money, that it is all managed. But when I requested access, he laughed. The courtroom changed. That name, Unity Ventures, rang a bell. Christine bristled. The prosecutor faced her. Miss Brown, do you know anything about Unity Ventures? Christine nodded warily. Yes, it was supposed to be a joint LLC. The 5 of us were to use it to start joint ventures. For family businesses, counseling sessions, even real estate. But we never did see the books. Ever, Janelle chimed in from across the room. He told us the money wasn't available yet, or that the taxes were being submitted year after year. But we never did see a dollar. The prosecutor moved forward. Your Honor, we move to enter into evidence, Exhibit C, an 8-year financial analysis of the Unity Ventures account. Kody's attorney sprang up. Objection. Irrelevant. But the judge leaned forward. You called this a family. Families share money. Objection overruled. The prosecutor brandished the document. As shown in the records from the bank that were confirmed by the court's financial analyst, Unity Ventures made more than $417,000 withdrawals between 2016 and 2023. 87% of that went to 2 sub-accounts, both in Kody Brown's name only. Robin blinked. The prosecutor went on. One of the accounts was titled Desert Family Consulting, the other, CFAB Holdings. No family members were co-signers, no financial reports were given, and no distribution statements, dividends, or disclosures went to any of the sister wives. Kody's mouth fell open a little. Apart from this, he wasn't prepared. He wasn't arguing with his family. This was the destruction of financial deception in the name of togetherness. Meri remained quiet, her eyes focused straight ahead. Her expression is unreadable, but underneath the serenity was vindication that only arrives when someone finally trusts you. Some vanishing acts don't occur in a flash. They occur in moments, tightly stitched, deliberate silences that blot out a human from their very existence. The prosecutor took a step forward once more. Her hand was on the next piece of evidence, a further journal page, this one frayed at the edges, the ink faded a bit. She did not have to justify it. She simply started reading. The 25th of December 2019. It was Christmas. The camera crew had departed. The lights were dimmed. He didn't stop by. No call, no message. I sat on the porch sipping cold cocoa in my hands. I waited 6 hours. At 9:42 p.m. I finally sent a text message. "Are you coming?" His response? "Don't make this about you." I wept into a pillow that I had purchased for him. The courtroom snapped. The floor was what Janelle looked at. Christine blinked hard and quickly. Robin, already white, shut her eyes. Meri did not move, as if to read the entry out had taken something from her. But she gave it anyway. The prosecutor went on. Later in the evening, I wrapped up the presents I purchased for the other children. I sent a message to Robin, asking if they'd like to come pick them up. She replied, "This isn't a good time, maybe next week." It wasn't a family anymore, it was a filter, and I didn't make the cut. Robin's eyes filled with tears, but no sound escaped her lips. Kody looked away, but the court didn't. The court saw her. "Do you recall being encouraged to separate from family gatherings?" the prosecutor inquired. Meri nodded. "Yes, at first it was subtle," he'd say. "Let Robin have her moment," or "You've had enough screen time this season." Then invitations were not extended, planning meetings I wasn't told about. She breathed in. "I didn't stop appearing because I gave up. I stopped attending because no one cared when I was not there." That sentence, it stung worse than any lie, worse than the bank statements, worse than the tapes, because this was the wound that had no paper trail, no financial cost. This was emotional abandonment in slow motion. The judge leaned forward. "And these occurrences are mirrored throughout all 7 years of your diaries." Meri looked her straight in the eye. "Every year, every holiday. Each time I thought I'd said enough to be heard once more, I was reminded I was only acknowledged when it benefited his storyline." Even the bailiff appeared shaken, because no gavel could erase what had already been lived. The judge's gaze hadn't strayed from Meri for minutes. Everything she said, every entry read from her journals, stripped back layers of the truth fans used to watch on television. But what the show never picked up on were the scenes being rewritten behind the scenes. The prosecutor came in again, holding up another underlined journal page. "The 2nd of March, 2020, I brought up the topic of therapy again. Kody waved it off immediately. Robin said I was making unnecessary waves, that I needed to heal spiritually before I asked for help publicly. I asked her if she was saying that I was the problem. She replied, 'No, but don't make things any more difficult for him.'" The prosecutor hesitated. "Miss Brown, do you think that Robin was told to discourage you from counseling?" Meri nodded. "Not only do I think it, I have evidence." A shiver ran through the room. She opened her bag and drew out a crumpled paper, sharp at the edges but worn with age. She handed it to the prosecutor. It is a text from Robin dated April 2021. It states, "Don't mention this to the crew. It is not appropriate. Kody's already feeling besieged. Let's be together before them." The prosecutor read it out. Kody sat bolt upright. That is taken out of context. But the judge had heard enough. "Mr. Brown, sit or I shall hold you in contempt." He sat, jaw clenched, eyes boring holes into the table before him. Meri went on. "That wasn't the only one. There were dozens, all of them telling me to shut up, to play nice, to toe the line." She gazed directly at Robin. "You weren't just the favored wife, Robin, you were the enforcer." Robin's face collapsed, but she did not speak. Because sometimes silence is a concession. The prosecutor addressed the judge. "We think these communications, coupled with the journal entries, create a pattern of emotional gaslighting, collusion to stifle individual voices, and purposeful manipulation of the family narrative for public perception." The judge nodded. "Also, however," she added something sinister, There could also be evidence to explore witness manipulation in connection with the show, is production ethics. And suddenly, this was not just about emotional deception anymore. This was about media manipulation. The family was not just falling apart inside. It had been edited thus on purpose. The judge's eyes had not left Meri for minutes. Every word that she expressed, every journal entry read, stripped away layers of the reality fans used to see on television. But what the show never caught up on were the scenes that were being rewritten backstage. The prosecutor came back again, waving another underlined journal page in her hand. The 2nd of March, 2020. I again brought up the subject of therapy. Kody shut it down at once. Robin said I was making waves unnecessarily, that I needed to heal spiritually before I went and got help publicly. I asked her if she was telling me I was the issue. She replied, "No, but don't make things worse for him." The prosecutor hesitated. "Miss Brown, do you think that Robin was told to steer you away from counseling?" Meri nodded. "Not only do I think it, I have evidence." A shiver ran through the room. She pulled out a crumpled paper from her bag, crisp at the edges but worn with age. She handed it to the prosecutor. It is a text message from Robin, April 2021. It states, "Don't mention this to the crew. It is too soon. Kody's already getting attacked. Let's present a united front in front of them." The prosecutor read it out. Kody sat up with a jolt. That is taken out of context. But the judge was not interested. "Mr. Brown, sit down or I will hold you in contempt." He sat, jaw clenched, eyes blazing holes into the table in front of him. Meri went on. "That wasn't the only message. There were dozens, all telling me to be quiet, to play nice, to stay in line." She glared at Robin. "You weren't just your favorite wife, Robin. You were the enforcer." Robin's face disintegrated, but she didn't talk. Because sometimes silence is a confession. The prosecutor addressed the judge. "We think these communications, coupled with the journal entries, create a pattern of emotional gaslighting, collusion to suppress individual voices, and willful distortion of the family narrative for public image." The judge nodded chillingly, though she added something. "There may also be grounds to explore witness manipulation regarding the show's production ethics." And just like that, this wasn't strictly about emotional deception anymore. This was about media deception. The family wasn't just self-destructing within. It had been edited, thus deliberately. The courtroom wasn't prepared. Because the next person to testify wasn't sitting next to Kody. She wasn't one of the wives. She was someone no one had anticipated. A woman with dark cropped hair, wearing a fitted black pantsuit, strode through the side door and handed a clipboard to the bailiff. She spoke in a whisper. The judge's eyebrow shot up. "You are asking to testify as a witness?" The woman indicated that she was. "I am. My name is Lisa Cartwright. I was part of the production crew of Sister Wives from season 12 to season 16. An audible gasp. Kody sat stiffly in his chair. Robin slowly rotated her head, her eyes narrowing as if she'd seen a specter. Lisa strode purposefully to the stand, unflappable, controlled. Not seeking revenge, seeking the truth. "I was in charge of editing footage, overseeing interviews, and communicating with TLC producers." The prosecutor stepped forward. "And how come you are here today, Miss Cartwright?" Lisa didn't delay. "Because I possess information about footage deliberately buried at the behest of Mr. Kody Brown, footage that directly corresponds with Meri Brown's journals." A buzz erupted throughout the courtroom. The judge demanded an order, but no one was able to turn away. "What is the type of footage?" the prosecutor questioned. Lisa unfolded a flash drive. "There is one clip where Meri is sitting on her porch, crying. After Kody avoided her messages for 2 weeks. It is raw. She pleads with him to return just to speak. It was recorded by the B-roll crew. Kody had asked for it to be erased, said it wasn't the image TLC wanted." Meri blinked, stunned. Christine looked heartbroken. The prosecutor asked, "Was that footage deleted? Undefined?" Lisa shook her head. "It was archived, undefined and not aired. Undefined but not destroyed." "Undefined, he couldn't do it." "Undefined something in me said this would matter one day." Kody exploded. "That's a violation of contract." Undefined, the judge raised her gavel, but Lisa didn't flinch. "There's more," she said. Undefined, there's a clip of Robin coaching Meri before an on-camera scene, telling her not to say the word separation. Telling her, "It is not time yet." Undefined, we haven't softened the audience. Kody was standing right there. Undefined, he nodded in agreement. Now the room buzzed. Not audibly, but emotionally. Undefined, you could feel the reality cracking. Lisa looked directly at Meri. "You weren't crazy. Undefined, you were being choreographed." And with that, she stepped down. Her job was done. Lisa Cartwright's testimony hadn't merely pulled back the curtain, it tore it off the wall. But the next piece of evidence wasn't recorded on tape. It wasn't spoken to a camera lens. It was written and preserved in one of Meri's journals, with a screenshot pinned to it. The prosecutor walked back to the front, eyes set in determination. "Your Honor, we move to enter one other exhibit. This text message between Meri Brown and Robin Brown, the 14th of November, 2021. The bailiff handed over the printed screenshots to the judge. Meri remained stock still. Robin's breathing visibly shifted. Christine leaned in, brows furrowed. The prosecutor went on. This exchange took place the evening after Meri supposedly told Robin she was prepared to leave the family. It was among her last efforts to escape. The conversation begins with Meri texting, quote, "I am exhausted. I don't think I can continue like this. He has not spoken to me in nearly 3 weeks." The prosecutor flipped the page. Robin replied, "Don't do anything rash. Kody's been under tremendous stress. If you leave now, it'll ruin everything. Just wait until next year. Maybe something will shift." Robin sat stone, faced, blinking fast. But the room already understood. This wasn't advice. It was a delay tactic. Meri's final journal entry of that day confirmed it. The prosecutor read aloud. "I almost packed that night. My bags were halfway zipped. Then Robin texted me again. She said, 'You leaving will make the rest of us look bad. Just think about how it'll be spun on television. Give it time.' I have no idea why I did it. But I did. I spent another winter, and it snowed for 14 days. I didn't see him once." Tears pricked at Christine's eyes. Janelle clenched her lips, her hands shaking in her lap. And Robin finally spoke up. Her voice was little more than a whisper. "I didn't mean to manipulate her. I was afraid. We were all pretending so hard." The judge glanced up. "Pretending for whom, Mrs. Brown?" Robin swallowed hard. "For the cameras, for the audience, for the man sitting beside me." Kody refused to look at her, refused to look at anyone. The prosecutor placed the journal and the screenshots side by side. "We believe this constitutes a pattern of coercion, reinforcing emotional isolation and delaying Meri's autonomy under the guise of sisterhood and unity." And with that, the prosecution rested. For now, the courtroom wasn't just silent now. It was suspended, like breath held for too long. The judge leaned forward. "The court has reviewed the final piece of evidence presented by the prosecution. This is an audio recording dated February 2022, recorded as a voicemail left by Mr. Kody Brown." Gasps made waves. Cameras outside clicked against the glass. Reporters jostled with pens and microphones. But inside, it was still, because no one had ever heard Kody like this. Not even the wives. The prosecutor proceeded to the middle of the room. "Your Honor, this voicemail was saved by Meri Brown, stored in her private drive and included with her journals under the file name. Don't forget." She addressed Meri. "Miss Brown, do you affirm that this is the original recording?" Meri's voice did not shake. "Yes. I never played it aloud before today." The judge nodded slowly. "Go on." The bailiff pressed the play button. After a moment, nothing. Then the unmistakable voice of Kody Brown, angered, impertinent, unvarnished. "You know what, Meri? I am done with this drama. I've got too much on my plate. You are not relevant to me anymore. You can cry, text, write your little journal posts. I don't care. You'll grovel back like you always do when you figure out you've got nothing else. You always do." The room went cold. Like someone had opened a window in the middle of winter and let truth rush in. Janelle looked down, visibly shaken. Christine, her eyes were wide, her lips parted in disbelief. Robin didn't move. She just stared at the ground. The judge didn't stop the audio, because there was more. Kody's voice again, harsher this time. You're not the victim here, Meri. You're the liability, TLCs. Done with sadness, they want positivity. I warned you all those years ago. Cease dragging the energy down. But you never get it. Then, click, the message cut off. Far from recovering, though, the courtroom didn't. For that voicemail wasn't only mean, it was evidence. Evidence that what Meri had documented in her journals was actual, the manipulation, the erasure, the strategy, all of it. Christine hunched forward and whispered. He said it out loud. The prosecutor slowly turned to the judge. Your Honor, the defense has contended this case is one of bitterness, revisionist history, hyperbole of emotion. But this message, this is not an interpretation, it is proof. Lucid, incriminating, and intentional. Meri sat, immobilized, her hands cradled in her lap, but no fear on her face, only freedom. The judge cleared her throat. We will recess for the evening. Closing arguments will start in the morning. The court does recognize the voicemail as being admissible, and its consequences will be given due consideration. The gavel came down once, but the reverberation, it was the clinking of a man's empire unmaking itself. The next day, the sun blinded the courthouse like a spotlight. But within, the courtroom did not buzz. It waited. All eyes were directed toward the clerk clutching a fat manila envelope, labeled Exhibit 47. It had been sealed for more than a year. No one, not even the prosecution, had any idea what it contained. Only Meri did. She sat up straight, composed, ready. The judge pushed back her robe and held the envelope in both hands. She sliced the top carefully, as one might cut open a wound that had long since healed. This exhibit, the judge started, was presented by the plaintiff at the beginning of trial to be unsealed only upon direct link to financial or emotional malfeasance. She surveyed the room. It now meets both criteria. The judge removed the contents, 2 pages stapled together. The first, a DNA test. The second, a notarized affidavit from a private investigator, dated July 2022, gasps. Burst forth before a word was even spoken. Kody bristled, fists curled on the table. Robin sat still, eyes open and wet, as if she already knew what was about to come. The judge read out. The accompanying paternity test was ordered by Meri Brown. Done through a private lab with chain of custody confirmed. The topic, one of Robin Brown's kids, whose father had long been assumed to be Mr. Kody Brown. Dead silence. Then, the findings definitively assert a 0.0% chance that Mr. Brown is the biological father of said child. The room exploded. Reporters poured out into the hallway, texting like crazy. Janelle breathed softly. Oh my God! Christine jumped up and sat down again. Wide-eyed Meri didn't flinch, but her eyes, those had cried that hurt a long time ago. Robin had a full-blown sobbing fit. No, this can't. He said he was going to raise the kid like his own. He swore, I never lied, I never knew. The judge didn't flinch, Kody. He banged a fist on the bench and bellowed, You deceived me. You! But Robin gazed directly at him over her tears. You used that child to use people. You supported her like a banner. You uttered, We remained together for the children, and I know now that had absolutely nothing to do with them. It was about you, your reputation, your authority. The gavel struck once. Order. Kody was silent, but not out of deference, from shock. Because this was more than betrayal. It wasn't only a secret. It was a deception spun into the fabric of the family. Your Honor, the prosecutor stated with caution, we make the argument that this revelation turned everything around. The motives for money, the manipulation of emotions, the games of control. This child was made a symbol of togetherness, when really she was being manipulated as leverage, and that leverage was on fraudulent grounds. The judge slowly nodded, taking in the gravity of it all. We will adjourn for 1 hour. When we return, this court will make its ruling. The gavel fell again, but the after-shadow this time. It had sounded like a door slamming shut. On a tale we all believed we knew. An hour later, the courtroom emptied once more, but no one was heard speaking. Not even the journalists. Everyone recognized this was more than a legal ruling. It was a reckoning. Kody came in last alone. No wife by his side. No smile. Only silence. Meri sat nearest to the front, her journal now closed, not because the tale was finished, but because she had finally spoken. Christine and Janelle stood by her side like sentries of the truth. Robin arrived as well, but not to defend. She sat with a tissue gripped in one hand and a guilt much heavier than anything she could fold into her lap. The judge returned with a grave expression. She glanced down at her notes, then out at the family. This former family, who had once been depicted as united under God, and now sat divided under oath. "We meet here today," the judge began, "to render judgment in the case of Meri Brown versus Kody Brown for emotional deception, financial hiding, and misrepresentation of marital intent." The courtroom breathed collectively. This court has considered in excess of 200 pages of journal entries, several audio recordings, financial records, and first-hand accounts from not only the plaintiffs, but witnesses both within and outside of the Brown household. Her voice didn't falter. "It is the finding of this court that Mr. Kody Brown knowingly and repeatedly committed emotional manipulation, ongoing gaslighting, and intentional concealment of marital funds, thereby violating the implied trust duties of fair treatment and familial equity promised under his public and spiritual declaration of plural marriage." Gasps from the gallery, from Janelle, from Christine, even from Robin. But Kody said nothing, because deep down he knew. While this court cannot adjudicate on the spiritual aspects of plural marriage, the judge went on, it can and will act when harm, emotional or financial, is done under its guise. She breathed in. Accordingly, the court hereby awards Meri Brown $192,000 in compensatory damages, the total amount estimated to have been withheld or diverted from joint marital assets. Furthermore, the court also imposes a permanent injunction. Mr. Brown is prohibited from using the names, likenesses, or images of Meri, Christine, or Janelle Brown in any future commercial endeavors without their explicit written consent. A beat. Next, finally, this court acknowledges the psychological and emotional harm sustained by the plaintiffs over a period of several years. Although we can't turn back the clock, this ruling is a legal and symbolic assertion that their voices had been heard. The gavel fell once, but that one blow was louder than all the seasons put together. Kody sat slumped in his chair, undefined, beaten, directionless, absent of movement. Robin silently wept, undefined, but she didn't take his hand. Meri stood afterwards, then Christine, then Janelle, and without having to say anything, they walked out. All together. They were once peddled to the world as sister wives now. They were survivors of the same narrative, finally penning their own conclusion. No longer filtered, no longer edited, no longer erased. Amongst the courthouse the cameras swiveled, not to Kody, however, to Meri. The woman who once waited silently was now the woman who ended the din.